Eden Kaz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. And as we begin the show, just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a soul realignment specialist, meditation master, and dimensional healer. Learn more, and there's merch also at EdenJustBe.com. Let's get this party started. Eden, Just Be Spiritual Boom in association with the Grassroots Warriors Network. And I don't have to have my earphones on today for those who are watching because it's just me here. I'm not listening to anybody else, so it's kind of nice. Okay, we are on Greatest Hits episode number 9, which is fantastic, which featuring featuring 16 guests, not about, but we are. So from the likes of Brandon Joe Williams to David Gibson, Greg Doyle, Susan Kennard, a lot, beautiful. I do a show per week. So most of these are like 140, 150, 160, so not that long ago. But then we have one from me, episode 47, as well as 65. So fun. You are about to listen to discussions on homesteading, fines, spiritual explosions, the false matrix, white privilege, MKUltra in Hollywood, 9/11, sound healing, the astral realms, dragons, Scientology, cults, died suddenly, power, crystal dreaming, colloidal silver, rabbit holes, ending with what I think is a fabulous ascension exercise. Okay. Let's kick it off again with David. He was on the last Greatest Hits show. He's going to be on it again this time. So episode 146, David, the Freedom Conversation Podcast.
Smile for the screen share shot or whatever.
Smile for the camera. Yes.
Okay, one more.
Yes. Ready? Heck yeah.
I'm not a teeth smiler.
David, I'm probably going to include this because it's funny.
So we were in British Columbia and I was very unhappy, living in a city. Oh my goodness. And my wife said, what can we do to make you happy? What would make you happy in life? I said, I want to grow my own food. I want to raise chickens. And I want to live the life of a homesteader. And so we said, well, we got to go to Nova Scotia for that because BC, it's not great for that. Okay. It's very mountainous. Anyway, of course, so we move in December 2019, 2020. Click, we're just moved in.
Wow.
And we're like, okay, we'll remove these trees and we'll put a little garden here. And we're starting to plan it all out. COVID hits, February, whatever, a few months later. Yeah. Spring comes, our very first spring in the new house, soon to be homestead. And of course, you were there too, weren't you, in 2020? We all were. And it's like, okay, spiritual explosion. What's going on here now?
Okay.
This is the new world order coming for everybody. This was my thought. I was afraid. We were scared in this house. We were frightened. But thank goodness we are both spiritual people. We could reflect on our spiritual teachings. Mm-hmm. Very helpful. And just stay calm and think, well, now we're preppers, I guess. Because you don't know. No one knew what was going to happen, right? No one knew.
Okay, so what was it like there?
Oh, hard lockdowns. I was not allowed to travel between counties even. Yeah, right. So, So I could drive 15 minutes, 20 minutes in any direction, but you hit a different county. Not allowed to cross that line. $2,000 fine. $2,000 fine.
How did they monitor that? Were there people there or?
There was cops everywhere driving around. There's people out in canoes and even on the Nova Scotia news, they'd say, 2 fishermen in a boat were caught, they said, and given fines during the lockdown.
Whoa, and how much did you say the fines were?
It was $2,000 if I was caught in a different territory. And I didn't obey the rules anyway. I drove to I had to do things, man. I just threw a bale of hay. I threw a bale of hay in the back of my truck and I said, if I get pulled over by the police, I'm going to tell them I'm on agricultural business because there was stipulation. People had to go to work. I mean, you had to be on official business.
Okay.
You had to prove it. Or $2,000 fine. So that's one tyrannical move that happened here of many. And the masks, they were here forever. Mask mandates just went on and on. And I told you the longest vaccine mandate on planet Earth happened in Canada, British Columbia. Nova Scotia was probably the second world record because it lasted until February 2024.
Whoa.
Yes, my wife went to work just a few months ago, back to work. Just a few months ago. We're still in COVID world in Nova Scotia. You see now what we had to deal with?
Show 153, Cathleena Hailley, 5D Guide.
This goes to the deeper place that through the false matrix, we've been guided to play out three major frequencies: enslavement, imprisonment, and sacrifice. So we are enslaving ourselves within our belief systems. We are imprisoning ourselves within the mind. And then we sacrifice. We sacrifice health for money. We sacrifice in relationships. We do this because life is really literally nothing more than a series of life and death, so to speak, or movement. And, even if somebody says they don't fear physical death, they definitely fear the death of a relationship, the death of a job, all these things, And so this is this idea of that surrendering into it. And that's the idea of recognizing how we create. And from here, this vehicle, this is the piece that we're not. We're taught, forget the body and race around and do things. Well, that just keeps the matrix in play. That's the part I never understood. That's what was the upside down to me. I'm like, why are you going to a job? And I remember saying, I didn't agree to that. I didn't agree to those things. Like what, right? And saying this stuff. Right. So this is what the bigger piece in this is, that we as this vehicle, we're God consciousness. And you may have heard me say this, that the way I like to look at it is like God, if you will, source is like a giant library of information. It's really infinite calibrations of geometries, but let's just say it's a giant library of information. And you are a smaller library of the giant library, and so am I, but you're unique, very unique. There's no one like you. And so that library of information called you is your soul. And basically how we engage in a physical reality is we take this information called you. It's like the software in a computer. So the software tells the computer what to do. So the brain is like the computer. So we basically take ourselves, we download into the brain, and then we communicate to the body, and then we use that to create. But there's several things going on here that in that is that we're not downloading ourselves into the brain. We're actually sitting in these little boxes. We're sitting in this pentagonal shape boxes, like a little pentagon, like a 5-sided container, specifically 5-sided because it's closed grid, it's closed. So we're taking this information called you. We're sitting in this box and we're listening to a book being read to us, and we're communicating that to the body, and we're using that to create. So what is that? So the book being read to us is the collective beliefs, what it means to be a man or a woman or your family, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the boxes, so the edges of those boxes are created by the parameters of your belief system in terms of something you want to create. So in other words, if I say to myself, like, how can I create money? Whatever limited belief system I have is what creates the boxes. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say is this is about mastering the mind, because this is about breaking out of those boxes. How do I do that? Is I have to move from my head to my heart space. I have to go from the known to the unknown, right? But we're not taught to be in the unknown. We're taught to be in the known. And that's the 0 point. And so what is
episode 47? Here's me with Zoolander 2. I just watched Zoolander 2. This is so fascinating. In this movie, Vera Wang was featured, Tommy Hilfiger, Valentino, Kate Moss, among others in the fashion industry. And the premise of this comedy, this PG-13 comedy, was to find the chosen one. And when he was sacrificed, his blood would be the fountain of youth. So Mugatu has all these leaders in the luxury industry into this like dark, cavernous, sacrificial place. They were all in robes, and he had this knife, and he was going to kill the chosen one. And that didn't quite happen. Yeah, really, are you serious? Okay, and at one point, the young boy who was about 12 to 13 who played Derek Zoolander's son. He was probably about 12 or 13. And I had to look up what this is exactly. So an S&M hush ball gag, which I will pose a picture as well, was put in his mouth to keep him from talking. So instead of just a handkerchief, an S&M hush ball gag. All right. I don't know about you. I am not a prude. I'm not super conservative or anything. And if that was used in an adult film rated R, okay, I'm sure it would potentially have its place. But a PG-13 movie has a kid with a sex toy in his mouth, and the premise of it is about drinking someone's blood. Okay. Not funny. Show 151 with my good friend Tonya Harriman Fowler, spiritual disruptor. When you started to see that we are living in a matrix or became aware of the Great Awakening, that so much does not appear as it seems to be. What brought you to that point?
I think probably like a lot of people or people in your audience, 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we had this occurrence that I had never lived through in my lifetime. We had been presented with. And I think I stayed in a fear state maybe about 2 weeks and then began to think this isn't adding up. I can't even honestly say even that I began to look for things just started to fall into my lap, into my viewing, letting me know that there were others out there feeling the same way, that were already starting to push information out there for people to see that it is not as it appears. And I became very, very, I don't know, I just dove in head first. Like there was something that told me, yeah.
So so we're talking about the pandemic, by the way, which I'm sure most of you guys are aware. So how did things just start coming to you? Like, were you just on your phone and something just showed up? Like how did these little nuggets become placed?
To be completely transparent, I had gotten stuck at home. I had closed my business.
Oh my gosh.
I had registered to do my 500-hour yoga teacher training away in Columbus, and that got shut down very fast, and it changed to remote, and that was horrific. And I was at home, but somehow that training was pushing down my throat the outside world agenda that was going on, and it was not settling in my soul well. I was super sad that I had invested as much money as I had to be part of that program, because first of all, that's not the way I wanted to do it, was remotely like that. I don't think you can be a very good yoga teacher when all you're learning is online. That's just my personal opinion. And but at the same time, I was paying money to listen to this programming. Tell me about how I should be living my life, what kind of yoga teacher I should be, how I should view the world. And it literally was hurting my soul. My husband would walk in the room sometimes and hear what was being delivered and give me a WTF, like, what is this? And I mean, they had to see me. My eyes were rolling. I mean, it was awful. It was awful.
Can you give some examples of that?
Okay. So speaking freely.
Yes, please.
One of my biggest things was there was a program that I would have done in person that was a week long. So it was a big bulk of the cost of my training. Okay. Plus I would have had to be there personally. I would have had to pay for a hotel, all this stuff. So it was a large chunk of the total amount of money.
This was to get your yoga certification, like the first.
Correct, my 500. Okay. My 500. So it was an advanced certification. Okay. And a gentleman, because of what was going on, he was supposed to come to Columbus and teach. He decides we're doing this remotely. Well, because it was remote, he could invite anybody now, okay? Not just my group at this facility in Columbus. So we had people from around the world. Okay, so now the audience has gotten really large. Okay, so let's take a really large audience, which we could see ticking off in the corner how many people, as you can, that might be on your Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting into over 1,000. And now I know how much money, because our program was broke out, we saw how much money each of our programs were costing to give us the total. So I'm seeing all these people on. I know how much I paid for this portion of my program. And this gentleman sitting in his house in, I can't remember if he was in Oregon or Washington, so that'll tell you another part of the problem, looking the same shade of skin tone as you and I, talking to me about my white privilege. And I was sitting here looking at those numbers, knowing how much this gentleman was probably collecting. And again, my opinion, just because of what in my neck of the woods, again, I can't speak for everybody, but in my neck of the woods, the majority of yoga practitioners, again, are of mine and your skin color. Okay. It is what it is. We all are attracted to different things for different reasons. And I thought, you have probably just made more money than me and my husband combined for the year off of my white privilege and many others.
Another one of my close peeps, episode 155, Bailey Burgess, Young Matrix Breaker.
I'm more familiar with MKUltra within Hollywood. That's where I've done most of my research. I've done some research on MKUltra, like within the military and the CIA. Yet I've always been more, I guess, inclined or more, what's the word? More interested in the MKUltra in Hollywood. And especially since I was like a Disney kid. I loved watching Disney growing up and Nickelodeon and all of those shows. So for me to realize that that was actually a trap for all those actors and actresses as kids, and growing up and realizing that and seeing that, and when I was a kid, I wanted to be them. So it's hard to see that, and it's also hard to watch these shows now, and because I can see it now.
Yeah.
I can see everything that they were trying to show us.
I've watched the ones with all the feet stuff.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Well, let me ask you. So for some examples of people that have been mind controlled from our past, Patty Hearst, Charles Manson, Timothy McVeigh, and as we go into Disney, Britney, Justin Timberlake. All right, who else?
Demi Lovato. Oh, who was that one girl? She was a major one. Ashley or Amanda Bynes. She was a major one. Miranda Cosgrove. Yeah, there was a lot of them. Pretty much everyone that you saw in Disney.
Okay, so what do you feel through your research that they are put through, and why?
They are put through such control from when they are born. Like they are born into the system to be bred to be actors and actresses and to be controlled to put out this narrative to the kids and to play along with it and to go along with it and to just not ask any questions and not be defiant. So I can't imagine the things that they went through, drugs and torture and whatnot to keep them.
And extreme sexual abuse, from what I understand.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, even the Olsen twins and what they had to go through on Full House, that horrible stuff. So yeah, they were controlled without means.
Episode 65. James, I sure hope I got your last name correct. Aita, Citizen in Action. And this one was actually banned on YouTube, even though I'm shadow banned on YouTube. So yeah, James. So when you were in the military, is that when you started to see some things not quite gelling or making sense? Was it even before then as a kid or?
You know what? So I was in 3rd grade when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And I'm from New Jersey, and so like I remember looking at the Twin Towers from like Home Depot near my house. And then in high school, kids were like, oh, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. And I always thought it was a joke, and I never looked into the corruption of the government. But then you find out on September 10th, 2001, the Pentagon lost, like, I think it was like $2 trillion unaccounted for. So now, they lose trillions of dollars of our money. And then at the same time, they want to monitor everything that's $600 transaction. And so they can monitor us perfectly with all the technology, but all the money that's under their control, they just lose it and misplace it and give it away. So it just, we need common sense. We need strength and power. We don't need disorder and chaos. And that's why I love
Episode 154, David Gibson, Director of Global Sound Healing Institute.
One is really educating the masses that
Yes.
you can actually heal yourself, because the mass consciousness is we can't heal ourselves.
Right.
We
We're victims.
absolutely have to call a doctor.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the whole deal, right?
Yes.
So there's that aspect, and that's based on really overcoming chaos, which is disease, with stable, consistent vibrations, which are the vowels and crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, anything that does a drone. It's like this. It's like fear is a chaotic vibration. Ah! Or anxiety. Or pain. Or anger. Or just stress. And those are all chaotic waveforms versus the vowels, which are peaceful. Anybody can feel the difference, right?
Yeah.
What I've
Okay.
learned is peace is a frequency humming consistently.
Okay, say
So-
that again.
Peace is a frequency humming consistently
Mhm. Okay.
instead of chaotically. A lot of people talk about going out of tune, parts of the body. That's serious. That's like a cancer cell's now changed to a different frequency. That's really serious. The basis is just chaos, which is buzzes or tension in the body. And over time, that becomes a disease. So I was a physics major at UC Berkeley. There's a basic law of physics, and that is a really important one. A strong vibration will overcome a weaker vibration
Mhm.
and entrain the weaker into the stronger. So we can simply go to any part of the body, physically, emotionally, that's buzzing. And it will often, in fact, most of the time, especially emotionally, overcome it and create that peace. Because we really need to educate the masses. My brother in Amherst, Massachusetts, I told him I was doing sound healing. He says, "What the hell are you doing that shit for?" He says, "That's ridiculous," right? And then he got 4th stage cancer, prostate cancer, and went into Massachusetts General, who paid me $15,000 to actually do a whole series of CDs for their integrated therapy department. And he sees the CDs advertised on the TV in the hospital while he's there. And now he's talking to me.
Episode 158, Greg Doyle, Astral Traveler. Go into that a little bit more. And you kind of touched on that in the astral realm, that you feel so much more. Yeah, go, you explain.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like you touched upon it before with the senses. It's like one sense. So, like in 3D, we talk about the separate senses, and the funny
Yeah.
thing is people feel separate. There is this separation is part of the illusion. This is where suffering comes from, this notion that we are separate, which of course is rubbish, garbage. We're not separate. So in the astral, you feel this incredible, when I say full-bodiness, it's like you can set, like everything is, you telepathize with people, like with entities, and you can sense how a tree is feeling, you can sense how the earth is feeling, you can communicate with something behind your back. You don't have to look to swing your head around to see it. And so there are more colors, there are more sounds, there's a certain stillness. And what I've derived, what I've worked out is when I've really analyzed my mind, because I've been out there a lot and I've often forced myself awake while I'm astral to just see the transition, to see the difference. It seems this notion that we've in these spiritual domains that we're in, we talk about with mindfulness, we talk a lot about being in the present moment or the now. In the astral, you are full-bodied in that present moment. So there is no past, there is no future. You totally embody the present tense. And so because it's out of 3D, so you're into like 5D, which is beyond time and space. It's not a linear thing. And that's why it's so ecstatic, because you are utterly present. And that was kind of the driving force for me to get more and more into this and into these meditations that I do with some people in courses, because it's totally an ecstatic state of being when you're entirely present. So to meditate in the astral is the highest form for me of consciousness, where you are, it is so ecstatic and you're so connected to everything. So there is no past. So there is no weight of the past you're dragging with you. There is no expectation of the future, that we've got a little bit there, we're all thinking even on a very low level of past and future. So you are literally, without any attempt, you are fully embodying the absolute nowness, which is out of linear time. So when you're in that now moment, ironically, you can access past and future and all these states because you are kind of clinically present. I don't. It's a within.
Podcast 157, Caroline Oceana Ryan, Dragon Channel. Okay, and from your perspective, when just from movies and that sort of thing, when you think of a dragon, it's huge.
Yeah.
Are they, from your perspective, all different shapes and sizes, or?
They can be. Some
Okay.
might be as large as a whale, and others only as big as, say, a baby whale or even a cow, somebody's saying right now. But you're calling in somebody who really is in the etheric because they're higher vibrational. So my beautiful dragon friend, Lady Janessa, is here with me right now. She's a red dragon, and she's here with me right now. And I kind of think of her just being asleep, lying on the floor and being asleep at night, and she's always with me. But she's not bothered by the fact that I live in a casita, which is basically a tiny house, because in the etheric, those walls don't exist. Just like when people will say angels come in, the walls disappear. Angels aren't troubled by that. Neither is any higher vibrational being. Yeah. So size isn't too important, but it's just one of the interesting aspects. Yeah.
All right. So in terms of fire breathing and that sort of thing, I'm assuming they're all different. Maybe some do breathe fire.
Yes, some do breathe fire and some don't. Yeah. So the ones, for instance, who live deep in the sea and who are assisting the seas, and the whale dolphin family know about that, and they give them, plenty of space to do their work. And the whales are, of course, doing their own work, helping to heal the planet with their song and just with their presence, as are the dolphins. They're all related. But yeah, some are in the sea, and my information is that those do not breathe fire. No, that would be more the ones in land or air. Yeah. And we used to ride on their backs and glide over mountains and valleys and hills and, and the ocean, and be thrilled, with the view, and just connect with these beautiful beings. They do mediate situations on the earth, but more often probably intergalactically, because they can be more open there. There are ships, there are pyramids, such as the ones in the sun. The sun is not all a ball of fire, it's open inside. And if you go into the golden pyramids in the sun, you will see golden dragons flying well high above. It's pretty cool. I have a whole series for that, whole meditation series. And you can work with the gold frequencies there. There are golden dragons, there are silver dragons, black, yellow, red, gray, etc. Many, many different colors, not just the principal or primary colors, but the in-between ones as well.
Episode 164, Brandon Joe Williams, Don't Be a Slave. Please don't. Okay, so Scientology has a good bit of controversy itself. How did you get involved with Scientology? Yeah, how did that happen for you?
My mom got really, really sick in a really weird way back when I was probably 19 years old. And she started gaining a lot of weight and she started acting like she was like possessed. It was really weird. And she was really scared that she was going to die. And she was in really bad emotional and spiritual and physical shape. And so she went to the library, local library in the middle of nowhere, Hebron, Indiana, middle of nowhere. It's close to Maryville, Valparaiso, Gary, Hammond. And she got all these books and she was reading everything, you know, Eckhart Tolle, Tony Robbins, anything from nutrition, you know, mentality, spirituality. And she was just trying to figure out what went wrong because we'd already taken her to a bunch of hospitals. She'd already had like a thyroid surgery and stuff, and it was just a nightmare. Just made things worse. And she found the book Dianetics, and she read that book, and then that's kind of what started everything. She called a family meeting, and she said, you know, I found this book, and it's pretty amazing. And I found out that it's this religion now, because we had never heard of any of this, being in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. I'd never heard the name L. Ron Hubbard. I had never heard the term Scientology. I had never heard the term Dianetics in my whole life, right?
Okay, so were y'all a certain faith before this, or?
Yeah, well, I grew up as a Lutheran, but we stopped going to church probably when I was about, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something. So, you know, I was kicked out of Sunday school too for asking too many questions. Surprise, surprise, right? I wasn't even being mean about it. I just had a lot of questions and it was just not going to work. So they booted me for that, but I never felt bad about it. I never had any hard feelings. I was just like, all right, well, probably best for the both of us, you know. But you know, when Mom told me that, I was like, wait, we're gonna go see some goofy religion up in what, Chicago? And yeah, it was in Chicago, right? So I wanted to go just because it was in Chicago, honestly. I just wanted to go to Chicago. I wanted to go to like Millennium Park or something. I don't know. I lived, you know, that area where I grew up, Chesterton, Indiana, and Hebron, Indiana, is that my two homes. Chesterton, I was there until I was about 10, and then Hebron from 10 until 19, right? And the South Shore train runs straight from Chesterton, Indiana, straight into the city in like no time flat, like an hour. And it's like, you know, at that time it was probably like $6 for a ticket or something like that, or less, who knows. But I just never went. For whatever reason, you know, we would talk about it and we just never went. I think we went to Chicago a couple times for like a hot minute here and there, but I mean, having no money doesn't help, right?
Right.
And just hearing that this church was in Chicago was enough for me. I was excited. So
Okay, so how many were in your family?
myself, my little brother, my stepdad, and then my mom.
Okay, so y'all all headed. And where's the home base? Is that Chicago?
No, the big center is in Clearwater, Florida.
Florida. Okay, thank you. Okay, so go ahead.
So we go to Chicago and we do the thing and we get started, and I thought it was kind of weird or whatever, but then I was like, all right, whatever. My whole family's there and like they're my ride, so it's not like I can do anything anyways, right? But I thought it was cool. I was like, you know, whatever, I'll check it out. And I did a few of the basic courses. I did the basic study manual, which is a course on how to study and clear up words and stuff. It's one of the first things I ever did. And I did a communications class called Success Through Communications. And it was actually when I was on the basic study manual course is actually when I realized that this is what I want to do, and this is like super amazing. Because I had always had a hard time studying. I could never read really, and it wasn't like I was illiterate necessarily. It was just that I would just fall asleep whenever I was reading, almost like a narcolepsy kind of a thing when I'm reading. So, but then come to find out, according to the religious text, that's because you go past words you don't understand. So the first 3 years in the religion, I was very, very much in dictionaries all the time because I just didn't understand the definitions of like any words, right? And it's kind of funny, 15 years later, after doing all that for that long, to come and find out that now there's this whole other layer to the onion, thinking that I thought the definition of the word citizenship, and I thought I understood nationality, I thought I understood the word residence, and then now find out even that was all wrong and all false, and the dictionaries don't tell you the correct definitions when they're used in contractual or legal or government-related interactions, right? So, yeah, I mean, my whole life essentially has been pretty well since the point I was 19 years old. I mean, misunderstood words and looking up misunderstood words and the pursuit of understanding of symbology and words has been a major part of my life, and it's the main thing that got me to really devote myself to the religion. And then I wound up working at the church for about 8 years. I worked in Chicago, LA, and New York City. And then I did professional, what's called auditor training, which is the type of therapy that we offer in the church. I did tons of that all the way up to the very top of where you can get at this point in time. And then in 2007 and 2010, the entire historical chronological past that had never been available up until that point had been released, which was like 1,600 hours of lectures. And I worked on that. It's called the chronological route. It's all the research from 1948 until 1961. So it's not even his whole research track. It's just a big. It's like probably 65% or maybe even 70% of all the research he ever did that was published. Mm-hmm. And it took me 7 years to finish that. I worked on it every single day for 7 years.
Gracious.
And I finished that, I think, in 2017 or 2018. Mm-hmm. And there's only probably like 50 people on the whole planet that have ever done that. So not many people have done that whole chronological route. It's just not something that people typically do. So yeah, I would probably say, with all of my therapy training, as well as having finished the entire chronological line of research, as well as working for the church for 8 years, I'm probably one of the highest trained Scientologists in the world, actually. But a lot of it just comes down to understanding the definitions of words, cleaning up the definitions of words. It really does. It really does. I mean, it really is kind of like even Mr. Hubbard talks about it. It's kind of like the spinal cord of our whole religion. Really, it is. I'm not kidding. I mean, it's if you boiled the whole religion down to, what is the tenet number one? What is the most important thing? What is the most spinal cord, nervous system, skeletal system aspect of the whole religion? It's this whole clearing up words and looking at the definitions of words and the etymology of words, and understanding grammar and symbology, really.
Okay, that's so interesting. I didn't know that. All right, because there are so many falsities out there, and when I talk about the controversy of Scientology, with you being in it, is that true from your perspective?
Well, we do have these upper levels that are confidential, but the way that Mr. Hubbard talks about it is it's just dangerous to just start giving that information out to random people. You have to kind of like be ready for it, essentially. And we have this thing called the bridge, which is where you go step by step by step by step. And then when you're actually ready to get on those upper levels, then, there's a confidential course room and stuff like that, which I haven't done any of that. So I wouldn't really even know what's there. But the confidential stuff is confidential for a reason, because it can be a lot of that information, according to Mr. Hubbard, which I haven't seen the information, so I wouldn't know, can be used to really harm society in a really awful way if it was got into the wrong hands or something like that. So, and then also just a person themselves has to be ready. You know, I mean, the whole point of the entire bridge that we have step by step is you start off with like easier things like memory drills and stuff like that, and then you move up to more difficult things like transgressions that you've done and things that you feel guilty about is obviously difficult. And then above that, we start getting into trauma, physical car accidents and trauma. So it's there's this whole sort of step-by-step thing called the bridge that basically allows a person to kind of start at the easier stuff and then move up. And then obviously for people who are in really good mental and spiritual shape, they just kind of like speed through those levels in like 10 seconds.
Okay, so it's really getting into the emotional, spiritual, like you really looking, like I would say, like doing shadow work, really getting into who you are, what makes you tick.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that at the lower levels, all the way up until you start getting to the confidential stuff, a lot of the confidential stuff, which again, I've never done it, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But a lot of the upper levels that people talk about and the confidential stuff and all that, a lot of that is done you by yourself. It's called solo auditing. You're actually auditing by yourself, right? All the lower stuff, all the way up to what's called clear, and like all the lower stuff and all the stuff that you really see anybody doing is all done with another person. So that's another thing too, is that you have to have enough mental and emotional fortitude to be able to kind of fly on your own. You even get a little pin when you finish the solo auditor course, and it has little wings on it. It's a solo auditor and it has little wings, because you're learning to fly solo by yourself, meaning you're learning to audit or provide therapy on yourself by yourself. It's a long road typically to get there.
Yeah. Okay, last question on that. If someone came up to you and said Scientology is a cult, because there's a lot of not so good stuff out there, what would you say?
Well, the definition of the word cult,
good one. Let's go.
is a group of individuals that, you know, basically kind of look up to a figurehead. It's a one person.
Yeah.
It's a one person centric group. If we were to make it simple and say, what's the definition of the word cult, and keep it really simple, it's a group of people that are centric upon one person's ideas, whims, teaching, something, right? Under that definition, absolutely, it absolutely would be. But the thing is that nobody knows that's the definition. Everybody just runs around and says that word, and they don't know what it means.
Yeah.
So, you know, the reason why it's a difficult question to even talk about is because you never know what's in someone's head, because everyone has a different definition, because no one knows the actual definition. And that's why everyone gets so emotional on the subject. I mean, I call even my platform a cult. All these, you know, we got like 100,000 people running around and filing documents and giving up their driver's licenses and getting weird passports and suing government agencies and doing all this crazy stuff.
I want to be one of those. Okay.
Yeah, we call ourselves Pickletarians. I say straight up, this is totally a cult, 100%. Because it's a group of individuals that are working or operating or based off of a figurehead. I am the figurehead. I mean, Joey Kimbrough is there too, but he's really not a figurehead here.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a litigation and procedural engineer, and without him, none of this would be possible. But he's not. He's sort of a figurehead, but not. I mean, he kind of is, but he I think he prefers to just do his work, and he's just kind of more into the minutia of it all. I'm on the front end of this thing. You know, and like I had this whole platform before he came along. So, you know what I mean? Like, to say that there's figureheads, maybe, kind of. I've sort of made Joey kind of a figurehead, like in our private group and stuff. Like he chimes in. I've made him like, I put like special tags on him. It says like group expert and stuff like that, you know. But I think even within his own mind, or even within his own words, he wouldn't consider himself like a figurehead necessarily. We have a lot of plans in the future. I think there's certain things that he's told me privately that he wants to do. And I think that he would be the figurehead in those areas for sure. Really deep kind of litigation-based engineering type plans and projects that he I don't know what he wants me to say and not say, so I won't. But yeah, it is a cult because you have a figurehead. You have a figurehead, and then you have everything kind of based off of that figurehead. So, people say, oh, it's a cult, and this is a cult, and that's a cult. And it's like, they're just kind of showing their own ignorance because they don't know the definition of the word. Most things are cults. I mean, look at the word culture. Most things are cults. I mean,
I think you can throw down your microphone on that one. I'm done here.
yeah. I mean, most things are. I mean, families are cults. If the father holds a strong household and he runs the show and what he says goes, that family is a cult.
Okay, you're giving us more things to think about.
So yes, definitely I have a cult and I'm involved in cults and I have multiple cults and apparently I'm pretty into it. So I might as well just lean into it. Yeah.
You might as well just go for it.
Might as well go for it. Yeah.
Go for it. Wow. Podcast 159, Susan Kennard, spiritual scientist.
In the world. Actually, my dad died suddenly. Yeah. And it was 4 days after he had his second. Can I say these things on your podcast?
Yes,
yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Say anything.
So he'd had the second COVID vaccine.
Okay. When did this happen? Okay, second. So this was like 4 years ago, 3 years ago?
No, so he passed away 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Okay.
Gosh, the years just fly, don't they? Yeah, about 3 years ago. And so basically he'd had the second one and his wife was absolutely fine, but he, after 4 days, had a massive stroke.
Okay.
Now, my dad was okay. He was actually renovating the house I inherited and he was okay. And he had the second one and they literally... I'm glad that he actually did end up not staying because he never would have wanted to live a life like that. But they put him in the ambulance. They got him to hospital. They told me he had COVID. I know he didn't. And I went in with all of the, the kind of, paraphernalia that looked like a spaceman.
Yeah.
And went in and the doctor stood in front of me, a lady doctor. And she said, he might have to lose his leg. We've blood clots all over his body. I'm like, blood clots all over his body? She goes, yeah, he's got this. We see this a lot at the moment. And I said, yeah, he hasn't got COVID. I said, he's not ill. He hasn't been ill at all. And she said, well, he's got, blood clots all over his body. And she just looked at me and I looked at her and we were not in a position to say anything, but she knew and I knew. And then I went in to see him and he was on the Liverpool pathway. That thing where they put them on morphine and something else, and she said, we're keeping him comfortable. And I was like, when someone tells you they're keeping you comfortable, that's the story, right? So anyway, I went in and I was lucky because I was able to, kind of say goodbye to him. And he'd had a stroke and he couldn't, but he did smile with his eyes. And I was able to, because I was in the spacesuit, he was really into the galactics. So it's probably where I got it from. I was able to kind of go, didn't expect to see me in a spacesuit, right? But whether he heard me or not, I don't know. But he definitely smiled with his eyes, right? And that was a prime example of the tick box of what someone passed with when they actually didn't pass with it. And actually, I know 100% that pushed him over the edge, having that second jab. So, I think we're going to hear a lot about this. And I think we are going to hear a huge amount about people being very unwell and affecting their physical bodies. But I do know that he took that from a place of fear. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I do feel that, we can clear that frequency. Did you know I've got a Vax chamber on my website? Did you know I've got a galactic crystal healing chambers, a whole page of them. One of them is specifically for the Vax.
Oh my God. So I do vaccination healing as well,
See?
using Jesus and God consciousness. So yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Beautiful. So he was one of the ones. So I
Yeah.
have not
So you
had
did it from fear.
I haven't had personal, but your own father died, quote unquote, died suddenly. I just watched last night Coroners, and I've known this for a while, but now the blood clots are starting to be so long in people. Like there were massive blood clots, but now they're just growing, and I've seen pictures of them. They are just and they look like little aliens, and they look like at any point I'm like, are there going to be little eyes that pop out from these as well? That when he took the jab, and knowing all that you know, how did you process that? Because the same thing has happened.
I
with my
didn't
parents.
know that he'd taken it.
Okay.
So I found this out from his wife.
Okay.
And I said, well, what was happening? What happened? And she goes, oh, we just went up to the clinic, and we both had our jabs. And then he was really weird. And then he went to bed. And then a few days later, he tried to get up and he fell down and had the stroke. So, yeah, that's how I knew. I didn't know before.
Okay. Are you okay?
Yeah. Because my dad, being a medium, my dad came in and spoke to me for a whole week after he passed over. And so he was chatting to me, telling me loads of information. And I was like, oh, you're here again. Okay, hi.
Okay. So
now I'm really at peace with it. But and he also said that it was his time.
Yeah. Episode 160, Egan Sanders, Transformation Coach.
Well, here's the thing about power. So in
I
ancient
love that
times,
word.
we go back, I can recall lives in Atlantis and Egypt and even to cultures that predated that. In other times and other places, humanity's gone through many, many cycles. Humans have been here for millions of years. Whatever they tell you in the archaeology thing is not exactly true. And as aliens have come here, and there's, if you go out, a very simple thing is you go out in a crowd in a mall or something, and you look at 200 people and you really look at it, you realize that there's such a diversity of different people, shapes and sizes. It looks like humanity like are multiple alien races, because this is different skin color, all those different things.
Yeah.
They'd be very different. But at other times, there have been phases where people were more connected to their own power. And then what would happen is that people lost touch with their connection with the divine God, goddess, and they'd say, well, like I'm lost. And they'd say, well, I need an intermediary. And then you had the priests, and the priests, you say, okay, well, I got to go to this person. And then those priests and priestesses eventually became the government in one way or another. And that became the structure. And then people said, well, I need those people to intermediate so I can feel powerful. Now we're on a shifting of consciousness where people are saying, no, I have power. I can connect with that power within me. Therefore, I want leadership that gives me power back.
Beautifully put.
Yeah, and I think that, thank you. And I think that emblematically, Trump, although they say, oh, he's an egomaniac and this and the other thing, really, when I tune into him on a psychic level, like he loves the country. He wants to help people. He's a polarizing character, but essentially, he's taking back the power symbolically from all these other forces and saying, no, the American people can do this. And if you want to be successful, do it on your merit. And let's balance these things out. And here's your power back, because he knows he'll be gone in a couple of years and whoever will come in next. But he's trying to reset those things so we can feel powerful. And the thing is, nobody really can be our master unless we give them that power. But for many, many generations, we had people running things, whether we call it the Illuminati or something else. They are just people, Soros and all these guys are like, let's just pull the strings on things so that they can, manipulate us. Bill Gates is another person I don't really have a high opinion of with things he's done. So we're questioning these people. And because of the internet and shows like this and, all these other things, now there's more media outlets. Now all the things are being exposed. So we're collectively taking our power back. So it's not about Republican, Democrat, this, that.
Yes.
I want everybody on this planet to be empowered and to be able to express their highest reality and greatest self and not be under the yoke of a master anymore, because we don't need that. That's the old thinking. This is a new thinking. that we're all free beings. We're all free beings.
That was I think we're going down under twice in this show. Episode 161, Georgie Beaumont, Intuitive Healer.
But then there were just the rare few, like myself, who walked the streets and went into the supermarket and did everything with no mask. But we got abused a lot. Like I was abused a lot by others. And so it was a very difficult time to hold your head high and stand strong. I remember sometimes feeling really energized and powerful amongst the horror of it all, because I couldn't believe I was such a rebel. I couldn't believe I was doing this in the toughest place in the world. And
yes.
Yeah.
So when you were confronted for not wearing a mask, what would you say? Like here, I'd gotten like constitutional things in the United States to say, but again, we're in different parts of the world. How would you manage that? What would you do?
I'd respond with love. I would just smile at them. Like, look how happy I am without my mask on. Look how healthy I am. And I wouldn't say that to them, but I'd just smile and carry on and, not fight back, not retaliate, just be love. That I really felt that was my job. That was what I was here to do. So everywhere I went, I tried to shine as brightly as I could. I tried to lift people up. I love the crystal dreaming. It's a modality where we help people to get into this sort of altered state of awareness where they go traveling, basically, almost like a past life regression. You go traveling and you are given, like, you're guided by your team, your spirit guides in this, and mine as well. They're all involved. It's a very intuitive experience for me, where I just flow with it and it can go anywhere. It's unique to every different person that I do it with, which is what I love about it too. And we release traumas from the emotional body, and we also free lost souls. So often people have lost souls attached to their emotional body who are living vicariously through them. They don't realize they're lost yet. And there seem to be many more, like I was saying earlier, there seem to be many more that are in that situation because of these things that we've all been forced to take. And so it's helping to free lost souls, which then gives them, the client, a freedom and a lightness again, and releases ancestral things, patterns that may be happening for them. Like my situation too, helps them become aware of a pattern that's going on and to release that. And we do it through forgiveness, love and forgiveness, and just letting things go. So that's a beautiful modality. I love doing healing work. I love doing sound work.
Well, and I have to tell you that crystal dreaming, you were the first person that I've heard about that. So it from my perspective, because, I talk to a lot of people. I'm doing this show for 3 years. It seems very unique right now.
Yeah,
so,
it is. It's
thank you for sharing
developed
that.
by a man in Byron Bay in Australia.
Okay.
And he's an amazing man, a crystal master, they call him. And he just remembered it. He remembered it all.
Oh.
He had an amazing journey too, and then created this course quite some time ago, and he's taken it to the US. So there are people who teach it in the US and who practice it. Yeah. And
Show 163, James Galt, the magnificent yogic and freedom superpower. What are the benefits of colloidal silver?
This, I kid you not, out of everything I've studied and everything I've known and learned, like I said, this might be the single most simplest, incredible thing for everyone.
Okay.
First of all, more recently, around 2002, there was a study for people who like studies and validation and whatever. Dr. Larry Ford, like Ford Motor Company. You can look it up. He did in vitro, meaning in a petri dish, studies of like every known microbial pathogen, every known one, like 650 of those. So that's every kind of virus, bacteria, fungus, bubonic plague, AIDS. I don't know if they did cancer, probably there. Depends where they were, but every single thing, not a single microbe survived in vitro now in a petri dish.
Yeah.
in that colloidal silver suspension for more than, I think it was like 3 minutes or maybe 5 minutes, but a matter of minutes. Nothing. So, and the way it operates in that regard is basically the silver particles inhibit an enzyme that basically all single-celled prokaryotes use to metabolize oxygen, aka breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they suffocate to death. And because of that, there's no resistance buildup, there's no habituation. It's not like pharmaceutical antibiotics where, you know, the toughest 20% of the bacteria like go hide in your bones, like with Lyme, or they like curl up into a ball, stick their arm out like this, so they're resistant.
Okay.
They just die.
Still here. Okay.
Everything dies, including even eggs of like parasitic worms, because the parasitic worm egg is a prokaryotic single cell organism. Prokaryotic just means it doesn't have a nucleus. It's like a bacteria. Also, so-called virus, here again with the whole dichotomy between virus, bacteria, fungus, phage, that's all a fallacy. But it basically kills and devitalizes everything. In the viral form, it actually makes the viruses inactive by repairing its DNA. The way a virus works is because it's broken DNA and it inserts its broken piece of DNA into your DNA.
Yeah.
I'm really, really generalizing, but so anyway, it does a lot of amazing stuff. Also, before I get into ways to use it, other things it does. I mentioned earlier that cancer, all cancers, even today with a lot of the exciting new and improved cancers, that's not as simple as it was in the 1930s.
Mm-hmm. Turbo cancers.
Oh, that is a whole new
Yeah. Yeah.
flagship product. Anyway, not only will it kill the cancer virus, BX or BY, or more recently it's been called Bacillus licheniformis. It's a more recent name as it was rediscovered. So funny. Anyway, not only does it kill the pathogen, okay, this is one of the major idiocies of so-called modern medicine and the war on cancer. They're not ever going to destroy their flagship product.
Yeah.
Part of that is because the well-meaning compartmentalized researchers and physicians and oncologists, what do? They try to treat the cancerous cells of your body. That's not cancer. That's the symptom of cancer. So they can radiate you and chemo you and cut parts of your body out ad nauseum with this brutal, horrific stuff that they do. And you're not treating the cancer. You're eliminating the symptom of the cancer. Colloidal silver and rife treats the cancer, the microbe, which per the very basic Koch's postulate in the early 1930s, they proved so conclusively this virus is the cause of cancer. All carcinoma, all sarcoma, cancer, they had it isolated to one at the time. Microbe, like I said, it's more complex now. Anyway, so colloidal silver will kill that microbe. But then what's really astonishing is colloidal silver also helps, and we don't know why, I don't know what the theory is, I just know it works, and I've witnessed this myself personally. It helps a lot with regeneration.
Show 165 with Jen Hancock, vaccine injury, story of hope. Let me ask, how did that happen for you? Did you start going down the rabbit hole? Were you introduced? Okay. And once you start going down the rabbit hole, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a hole. Then there's another hole. Then there's another hole. All right. When you started discovering that, given everything you'd been through, what was that like?
I wanted to scream, shout it from the rooftops. And I did. I feel like I went on some kind of rampage, like on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that I had a voice. please, please, please do not get the vaccine. This is what's happening. I'm in hospital. This is chemotherapy kills. I'm watching people in front of me die the next day because the organs have failed and everything. And then all these people that are supposed to love you are making you go back. And that was the hardest thing for me. So I'm begging my husband, saying, please, 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 I don't want to do this. It's killing me. But the doctor said that that's the best thing. So you need to go back. So I would do it. And then actually it came up on Facebook today that it was 2 years ago today that I said enough.
Concluding with episode 152, Lisa, me, and Carol, the grassroots warrior women. First, I know I'm going to go last.
Just be practice.
Lisa was going first.
Lisa, let's do it.
Yeah, because if someone wants to achieve something, and I love what you're doing, if you have resistance or a block, this is what I use. So if you have like fear, and then you want to pinpoint what the actual fear is, and then where in your body do you feel it, or is it a thought? And then you want to release it. You want to get to neutral. So the idea is neutrality. You don't want to hold on to this at all. So it's, should I let it go? Yes. Could I let it go? Yes. When now? And you want to repeat that over and over again until you get to a place of neutrality, because all of a sudden the lens that you see the world, once you remove the fear, is going to be gone. And so there's, let's say I'm angry at my partner about something. You can focus on it. Where in my body do I feel it? You want to give it a number from 0 to 10. And then let's say it's a 5. And then, should I let it go? Yes. Could I let it go? Yes. When? Now. Should I let it go? Yes. Could I let it go? Yes. When? Now. So you can use this all day with people that aggravate you, because you want to be in a place of neutrality, because all you're doing is projecting your own stuff on them anyway. So you might as well clear it. And I invite you, when Eden and Carol are doing their work, is if you have some resistance that's coming up, you feel a sensation or it's a thought, use this technique to release it, so it allows the blockages to get out of the way. And that's how you really manifest. And you can use this for money. You can use this for health issues. You can use it for anything.
Beautiful.
Love that. Okay, Carol, take it away. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Well, I do, a lot of inner child work, and, a lot of our issues are coming from our upbringings, and at least that is stored in cellular memory for sure. And characteristics from our gene pool. But I like to see it as like our shaft, our spinal column is a shaft of white light. And as a child, they shine really bright. And something might happen. Aunt Martha might say, shut up. You can't sing, kid, at 4 years old. And you go into your closet and cry, or under the bed. And Johnny might say, you're ugly. And then someone might call you grade 7 or something as you're fat. So these things chip away from our inner light, and we want to bring those things back together by dealing with it. And so what I have people is just to go inside, go deep inside, and ask their inner child what has happened, maybe at some age, usually around 4 or 5 years old, if something happened, is to have that part of ourselves express what they want to express to us, and what they're going through. Can be at any age. I'm not saying, you can do this anytime with any age of things that have come up, and have that conversation as you and the adult now can give that part of yourself advice, or to bring it back into the now. We don't go back and get it. We bring that part of ourselves forward, and then we can look into that part of ourselves in the eyes and see their light shining bright, and hug each other, and tell each other how much we love who we are now, and how much that child was so brave to bring us to where we are now. And then join our lights together, and you see your own light shining brighter, because that part of yourself is back in place in that shaft of light. So you can do that, you know, maybe something happened at 15, or maybe, you know, at, you know, through a divorce, or something's chipping away at our light. Doesn't matter which age, what you were, you know, talk to that 26-year-old or that 35-year-old that was unsure of giving birth to a child, if you're going to be a good mom. And, you know, they can express themselves. And then that brings us back together and become whole within ourselves. Otherwise, we've left that piece of ourselves. You haven't left it, but the consciousness might be back there underneath the bed. So, you know, you want to bring that part forward and shine our light brighter. So,
I love that. Okay,
yeah.
fellow matriots, I'm going to ask you guys to go into this meditation with me, because y'all being here is going to make it even more powerful. So everyone that's with us, I would ask you, if you can, to engage in it as well. All right, I'll ask you guys to close your eyes and find that center within yourself. So Lisa really finding that inner guidance within her. Carol talking about the higher self. Okay, so I'm going to focus for a second with all the chitter chatter. And again, I love that word, rigmarole, that's going on in the world today, and how things are potentially bouncing around in your mind, worries, concerns. So we're going to look at that for a moment. And also at the same time, connect to the heavenly realm. And within that, bring all that chitter chatter. The heavenly realm is going to bring all of that in down to your heart. Okay, and not just saying that there's heaven, heavenly realm is above us, it's everywhere. Okay, now holding that in your heart, I'm going to ask you to connect, to ground yourself in. So everything below your heart, to nestle it. Into heavenly Mother Earth, to go deep, deep down. And then quickly, on the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to bring all of that up to your heart. So we're going to do it fast. So 1, 2, 3, bam. Okay, and your heart is going to support all of that, because it can, because it's so big and so expansive. And with Lisa and Carol also being here, focusing on their hearts and their divine light and bringing it to you, bringing it through these airwaves, bringing it into your room, bringing it into your car, bringing it to you if you're in a park, wherever you are. We can do that. You can do that. And my hand's on my heart because it just had to go there. So I'm going to let it go for a moment. And with this too, bringing the energy that is coming, that is here to everyone in this unity. And then bringing our hearts together. Bringing the worlds together, bringing the cosmos together. And to close, I was just thinking, what will it be like to not be a spiritual warrior anymore? That's interesting. All right, so whenever you guys are ready, go ahead and open your eyes. I don't know why that thought just came into my head. that we're not going to have to be warriors anymore. And not that we fight, but standing up and being like, it's suddenly just going to be all much more peaceful and relaxed. Ladies, I thank you so much for being here today. And please, if there's any final comment to take us out, feel free to do that.
I was going to say the next role is sage. You don't have to fight anymore.
Yeah.
Just be the wisdom.
Bye. Y'all say bye.
Bye.
Y'all find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, True Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.